When you're going into LECA from another media like moss, it's so important to take off all of the moss off of the roots. I know it's really time consuming and can take 20 or 30 minutes per plant to do. But every time I've had a challenge with a plant, it's because I didn't pull off all of the moss from the roots or the aggregate, whether it's soil or whatever it is. And then I'm watering the plant daily or frequently, and I take out the rocks and I look and there's root rot. For instance, with this strawberry shake, you can't really see it. It's kind of just like a wet stick, and I've got some algae and other fun stuff going on today. But this plant, over and over, I've had to take out of the rocks, remove with tweezers all of the little bits of moss to make sure that that moss isn't getting repeatedly hydrated, because obviously moss doesn't need to be watered every day. What's important to exhibit and maintain variegation is light. You want to give your plant enough light so that it knows it can stop producing the chlorophyll, the green parts, which actually absorb light, and it can start producing this cream colored plant material that actually doesn't have any chlorophyll in it, so it won't be great at absorbing light. It'll absorb very little light, if any at all. That's why you're actually seeing all the cream colored areas are what end up browning off. So that is kind of the downside with rare variegated plants, is that they are variegated, but they won't last long. Like this completely variegated shoot, this leaf and this subsequent leaf, they won't last long on this plant. And if we were to cut this plant and clone it, they probably wouldn't survive because they have no way of absorbing light. Now, again, another one of the big issues with the fiddle leaf fig is that it is overwatered. So this plant needs a lot of light, but it doesn't need that much water. It doesn't really like to have its roots sitting in moisture, but they really don't mind a dry root mass as long as it doesn't over dry. Now this leaf this plant over dried a little bit, so you're seeing a little bit of this browning. So an easy way to test the soil moisture is just with a chopstick. We can take this chopstick, stick it down into the soil, leave it for a moment, and then when we pull it back up, we can see how much moisture is on here and kind of feel the dampness of it. This is actually quite dry, and we can overall feel the weight of this. It's pretty light. That means there's not a lot of moisture in this soil, or else the pot would be much heavier. So what we want to do here is cut just about this point, so that ideally a shoot will come out here or here or here or anywhere down the branch. And if we cut here, as we discussed, everything below this point is going to be encouraged to grow. So we're going to cut here in an angled motion. We're going to now remove the extra leaves, because remember, leaves are for photosynthesizing. We want to encourage this plant to just grow roots. And we'll get a glass of water and just pop the stem right into the water. And place the cutting somewhere where it gets bright but indirect light. So now we'll go work on converting this soil houseplant into a LECA container. We don't want to take chunks of dirt and then soak them into water in the semi-hydroponics. That will create rot. So we want to rinse away all of this. Okay, so now we have our desoiled plant, our container that we're going to plant into, and our bag of LECA. So we're going to kind of mark where we want our plant to eventually sit. Okay, now we're fully transplanted. We're going to just get a gallon of tap water and our nutrients together to make our solution. So we made this a very simple 2-part formula for the nutrient, and it doesn't necessarily need to be pH'd. So since this is a relatively new plant, we're going to go with the lower side and kind of step our way up. 2 milliliters of part A. So part A is in, now we're going to do part B. It will be 4. Since part A was 2, this will be 4. So we'll go up to the 3, then we'll add in 1 more. Remember that the larger your plant is and the more established it is and the more light it gets, the more nutrients. So that's when you'll be going up to something like 6 of this and 12 milliliters of this per gallon of water. But again, once you put that in and add in your vitamins, your pH should be pretty stabilized. Most tap water comes out between 7 and 8 pH, and that's what we've set up this nutrient program for. So now our water is mixed. We're just going to pour until the water reaches the bottom of the root mass. And then you're going to want to change this water out every 2 weeks. And when you do that flush, I'll wrap my fingers around the plant and hold the rocks back and just pour out the water. and then swap it in. Of course, you can do it more often, but the goal of that is to reintroduce the oxygen back into this root zone, since these roots are just sitting in kind of an old water solution. Remember, in active hydroponics, we're constantly bubbling this water, adding oxygen back in.